Commander Marcus Blackwood's voice cut through the cramped submarine training facility like a blade through steel. "Pack your gear, Delacroix. You're done here." His weathered hands tore the golden dolphin insignia from Lieutenant Sarah Delacroix's navy blue uniform with deliberate cruelty. The 23 other submarine officer candidates, all men, stood motionless in the narrow corridor of the USS Nautilus training simulator, as Sarah remained perfectly still, her dark auburn hair pulled back in regulation style, her green eyes fixed straight ahead despite the tears threatening to betray her composure. "Women like you have no business in the depths," Blackwood sneered, letting her insignia clatter to the metal floor. "The ocean doesn't care about your feelings, and neither do enemy torpedoes. Real submarine warfare requires instincts you'll never possess." As the master-at-arms escorted her from the Naval Submarine School in Groton, Connecticut, none of the watch-in officers noticed the steely determination that flickered behind her humiliation. They had just made the gravest tactical error of their careers. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you." 3 years later, Sarah Delacroix moved to her modest apartment in Newport, Rhode Island, like a ghost haunting her former life. The cramped 2-bedroom space overlooked the harbor where submarines occasionally surfaced in the distance, their black hulls cutting through the gray Atlantic waters like reminders of dreams deferred. Her neighbors in the aging brick complex knew her only as the quiet woman from apartment 4B who worked at the Naval War College library, cataloging historical documents and answering research questions for visiting scholars. They saw her unremarkable appearance, her tendency to dress in muted colors that helped her blend into any crowd, her polite but distant demeanor that discouraged casual conversation. What they couldn't see was how her fingers traced the spines of submarine warfare manuals with the intimacy of a lover's touch. They never noticed how her eyes brightened when she discovered rare tactical documents from World War II U-boat campaigns, or how she lingered over declassified sonar analysis reports long after her shift ended. They had no way of knowing that every evening, Sarah returned to her apartment and unlocked a waterproof case hidden beneath her bed, revealing a single brass compass that had belonged to her grandfather, Captain Edmond Delacroix of the French Resistance, who had operated covert submarine missions against Nazi forces during the occupation. Her living room had been transformed into something resembling a submarine command center, though she carefully concealed it whenever maintenance workers or the occasional visitor appeared. Behind movable panels, she had installed submarine warfare simulation software that she had acquired through carefully cultivated contacts in the defense industry. The equipment allowed her to run complex underwater combat scenarios, practice evasive maneuvers, and study sonar patterns with a precision that would have impressed even the instructors at Groton who had dismissed her so completely. On her bedroom wall, visible only to her, hung a faded photograph of a young girl standing beside a submarine at the naval base in Brest, France. Her grandfather, resplendent in his French naval uniform, stood proudly behind her, his weathered hands resting on her small shoulders. Across the bottom of the photograph, in her grandfather's careful handwriting, were the words "Les profondeurs révèlent la vérité, ma petite." "The depths reveal truth, my little one." The same words he had whispered to her during their last conversation before his death, when he had pressed his compass into her 8-year-old hands and told her that the ocean held secrets that only the worthy could unlock. Sarah's exile to this quiet life had begun 3 years earlier, when her extraordinary potential had been systematically destroyed at the Naval Submarine School. Before that devastating day, she had been Lieutenant Sarah Delacroix, the most promising submarine warfare candidate the Navy had encountered in over a decade. Her understanding of underwater acoustics bordered on the supernatural. While other officers studied sonar displays, Sarah seemed to hear the ocean itself, distinguishing between the sounds of different vessel types, identifying the subtle signatures of specific submarine classes and detecting threats that others missed entirely. Her academic performance at the Naval Academy had been unprecedented. She had graduated summa cum laude with a double major in naval architecture and acoustical engineering, writing her senior thesis on advanced stealth techniques for submarine operations. Her tactical simulations during submarine warfare school had earned her recognition from Admiral Patricia Hawthorne, the first woman to command a nuclear submarine, who had personally recommended Sarah for the elite silent service program. Her instructors had marveled at her intuitive grasp of three-dimensional underwater combat, her ability to calculate firing solutions in her head while managing multiple threats simultaneously. At the Naval Submarine School, Sarah had shattered records previously held by officers with significantly more experience. Her performance in the escape trainer, where candidates practiced emergency procedures in a 100-foot water tower, had been flawless. While other candidates struggled with the disorientation and pressure, Sarah had moved through the exercises with a calm efficiency that seemed almost preternatural. Her scores in the submarine warfare simulation complex had consistently ranked in the top 1% of all candidates in the program's 40-year history. Her path to commanding her own submarine had seemed assured until the incident involving the USS Hartford simulation exercise. The exercise, designed to test candidates' responses to multiple simultaneous emergencies, had been overseen by Commander Blackwood, who had recently been assigned to the school following what many whispered was a demotion from his previous position at Naval Submarine Forces Atlantic. During the simulation, Sarah had identified what she believed to be a critical flaw in the exercise parameters, a subtle error in the sonar contact classification that would have led to a catastrophic, friendly fire incident in real combat conditions. Commander, respectfully, the contact bearing 270 is showing acoustic characteristics inconsistent with the designated target profile, she had reported during the exercise debrief. The harmonic signature suggests a Los Angeles class submarine rather than the simulated enemy vessel. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Blackwood's face had darkened immediately. "Lieutenant, are you suggesting that our simulation parameters are incorrect?" he had responded, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. "Perhaps you should focus on following orders rather than second-guessing systems designed by officers with actual combat experience." Sarah had maintained her position despite the uncomfortable silence that filled the debrief room. "Sir, the data clearly indicates discrepancies in the acoustic profile. In a real combat situation, this classification error could result in engaging a friendly vessel." The tension in the room had been palpable as Blackwood's jaw tightened. "The simulation is designed to test your ability to execute orders under pressure, not to showcase your theoretical knowledge. Either you trust the system, or you admit you don't have the temperament for submarine command." What happened next had been characterized differently depending on who told the story. Sarah remembered standing her ground, insisting that accuracy in threat identification was fundamental to successful submarine operations. Blackwood's version, which became the official record, painted her as insubordinate and unable to function effectively under the command structure essential to submarine operations. The investigation that followed revealed that Sarah's acoustic analysis had been completely correct. The simulation parameters had indeed contained errors that would have resulted in a blue-on-blue engagement in actual combat conditions. However, Blackwood had powerful allies within the submarine community, officers who shared his belief that the integration of women into submarine crews represented an unnecessary risk to operational effectiveness. The official report acknowledged the simulation errors, but concluded that Sarah's inability to follow orders when she disagreed with superior judgment demonstrated unsuitability for submarine command. Her protests fell on deaf ears. Her appeals were systematically denied, and within 2 months, She found herself reassigned to a shore-based administrative position at the Naval War College Library. The final humiliation had come when she learned that the corrected simulation, incorporating her acoustic analysis recommendations, had become the standard training scenario for submarine warfare candidates. Her insights were being used to train the very officers who had been present when Blackwood stripped away her submarine warfare qualification. Her name appeared nowhere in the documentation, her contributions erased from the record as thoroughly as if she had never existed. The years that followed had been a study in isolation and invisible preparation. Sarah worked her library position with quiet efficiency, earning the respect of researchers and scholars who appreciated her encyclopedic knowledge of naval history and her ability to locate obscure documents with remarkable speed. She published papers under a pseudonym in various military journals, analyzing historical submarine campaigns and proposing tactical innovations that gradually gained attention in professional circles. None of her colleagues knew that the brilliant strategic insights attributed to Sis D. Maritime came from the same woman they passed in the hallways each day. During her off hours, Sarah had constructed an elaborate personal training regimen that maintained and enhanced her submarine warfare skills. She studied every publicly available account of modern submarine operations, analyzed acoustic signatures from commercial shipping traffic in Newport Harbor, and used sophisticated computer modeling to simulate combat scenarios based on current geopolitical tensions. Her apartment had become a private war college where she continued her education in subjects that the Navy no longer allowed her to pursue officially. The isolation had taken its toll in ways that Sarah rarely acknowledged, even to herself. She had cut contact with most of her former classmates from the Naval Academy, finding it too painful to hear about their advancing careers, while she remained trapped in her administrative exile. Her romantic relationships had withered under the weight of her secret obsession with proving herself worthy of the command she had been denied. She existed in a state of perpetual readiness, maintaining skills for a mission that might never come, preparing for an opportunity that seemed increasingly unlikely with each passing year. Her apartment walls were lined with maps of major shipping lanes, tactical analyses of historical submarine engagements, and detailed studies of acoustic propagation in various oceanic conditions. She had memorized the specifications of every submarine class operated by potential adversaries, studied their typical patrol patterns, and developed theoretical countermeasures that she would never have the chance to implement. It was a comprehensive education in submarine warfare conducted in complete isolation, driven by a determination that bordered on obsession. The fourth year of her exile had begun with the same routine that had defined the previous three. Sarah arrived at the Naval War College Library each morning at precisely 7:30, unlocked her office, and began her day by reviewing any new research requests that had arrived overnight. The scholars and visiting officers who utilized the library's resources had come to rely on her expertise, though few realized the depth of knowledge that informed her assistance with their projects. She had become a ghost in the machine of naval education, present but invisible, essential but unrecognized. On a particularly gray February morning, as Atlantic storms battered the Rhode Island coast, Sarah was cataloging newly declassified documents from Cold War submarine operations when she discovered something that made her heart race. Buried in a routine intelligence summary from 1987 was a reference to acoustic analysis techniques that perfectly matched the theoretical framework she had developed during her years of private study. The document described successful identification of Soviet submarine signatures using harmonic analysis methods that were nearly identical to the approach she had tried to implement during the infamous Hartford simulation. As she read through the classified material, Sarah realized that her acoustic analysis methods were not only theoretically sound, but had been successfully employed in actual combat operations. The very techniques that Blackwood had dismissed as theoretical nonsense had been used by American submarine commanders to track and evade Soviet vessels during some of the most tense moments of the Cold War. Her vindication was complete, but it existed only in classified documents that she could never cite, evidence that she could never present in her own defense. That evening, Sarah sat in her apartment surrounded by the hidden evidence of her continued dedication to submarine warfare, holding her grandfather's compass and staring at the photograph of herself as a child standing beside a submarine. The irony was not lost on her that she possessed expertise that the Navy desperately needed but could never acknowledge. She had become perhaps the most knowledgeable submarine warfare tactician never to serve aboard an actual submarine, a strategic mind trapped in the body of a disgraced former officer. The depths, as her grandfather had promised, had indeed revealed truth. But truth, Sarah had learned, was not always enough to overcome institutional prejudice and personal vendetta. She had spent 3 years proving herself in isolation, developing skills that would never be tested, preparing for battles she would never be allowed to fight. The ocean called to her through the windows of her apartment, its gray surface hiding the depths where she belonged, but could never again venture. Yet something deep within Sarah refused to surrender completely. Each night, as she ran through submarine warfare simulations on her hidden equipment, she felt the presence of her grandfather's spirit, urging her to maintain her readiness. The compass in her hand seemed to point not toward magnetic north, but toward some future possibility that remained hidden beyond the horizon. She had been crushed by the Navy's institutional bias, but she had not been destroyed. In the depths of her exile, she had forged herself into something new, something that the Navy did not yet realize it needed. The storm outside her apartment. Windows seemed to mirror the turbulence in her soul as Sarah closed the classified documents and returned them to their secure container. Tomorrow would bring another day of invisible service, another day of helping others pursue the career that had been stolen from her. But tonight, surrounded by the tools of her secret preparation, she allowed herself to imagine a future where the ocean might once again call her name, where the depths might once again become her domain. She had no way of knowing that halfway around the world, events were already in motion that would soon transform her private war college into the foundation for a legend. The compass in her hands continued to point toward a destiny that neither she nor her grandfather could have imagined, a future where her exile would end not with reinstatement, but with a mission that would redefine what the world believed possible. In submarine warfare, the depths were indeed revealing their truth, but the greatest revelations were yet to come. The telephone call that would change everything came on a Tuesday morning in March, as Sarah was organizing a collection of naval intelligence reports from the Korean War. The voice on the other end was crisp, authoritative, and completely unfamiliar. "Lieutenant Delacroix, this is Captain Elena Rodriguez, Office of Naval Intelligence. I need to see you immediately." Sarah's hand tightened on the receiver, her mind racing through possibilities. "Ma'am, I believe there's been some mistake. I'm no longer on active duty status." There was a pause before Rodriguez responded, her tone carrying a weight that made Sarah's pulse quicken. "There's no mistake, Lieutenant. Pack a bag for 72 hours. A car will arrive at your location in 30 minutes. This conversation never happened. The black sedan that arrived precisely 30 minutes later contained a driver who spoke only to confirm her identity before setting course for Naval Station Norfolk. During the 4-hour drive south, Sarah stared out the window at the passing landscape, her mind churning with questions that she knew better than to voice aloud. The driver's credentials identified him as Petty Officer Chun, but his bearing and the sophisticated communication equipment in the vehicle suggested connections far above his apparent pay grade. When they passed through the security checkpoints at Norfolk, Sarah noticed that their passage had been pre-cleared, the guards waving them through without the usual inspection protocols. Captain Rodriguez was waiting in a nondescript office building that bore no external markings indicating its purpose or occupants. She was a compact woman in her early 50s, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun that accentuated the intensity of her dark brown eyes. Her uniform bore the dolphins of a qualified submariner, making her one of the few women to achieve such distinction in the pre-integration era. "Lieutenant Delacroix," she began without preamble, "everything we discuss in this room is classified at the highest levels. Before we continue, I need your word that you understand the implications of that classification." Sarah nodded, her throat suddenly dry. "I understand, ma'am." Rodriguez activated a device that Sarah recognized as a sophisticated electronic countermeasures unit, designed to prevent any form of surveillance or recording. 3 days ago, we intercepted communications indicating that a foreign submarine of unknown configuration is operating in the North Atlantic. This vessel has demonstrated capabilities that challenge everything we understand about modern submarine technology. It has avoided detection by our most advanced sonar arrays, outmaneuvered our fastest attack submarines, and demonstrated acoustic stealth characteristics that should be theoretically impossible. She paused, studying Sarah's reaction carefully. "We believe this submarine represents a quantum leap in underwater warfare technology, possibly indicating that a foreign power has achieved breakthrough advances in propulsion, stealth, or both." The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. A submarine capable of operating undetected in the North Atlantic represented a fundamental shift in the balance of naval power. Such a vessel could threaten shipping lanes, gather intelligence on NATO operations, or serve as a platform for covert operations that could destabilize the entire Atlantic theater. "Ma'am, with respect, why are you telling me this? I'm not qualified for operational assignments." Rodriguez's expression didn't change, but Sarah detected something that might have been amusement in her eyes. "On the contrary, Lieutenant, you may be the most qualified person in the United States Navy for this particular assignment." She slid a thick folder across the desk, its cover bearing classification markings that Sarah had never seen before. For the past 18 months, a small team within Naval Intelligence has been reviewing personnel files, looking for officers with specific skill sets related to acoustic analysis and unconventional submarine warfare tactics. Your name appeared at the top of every computer algorithm we ran. Sarah opened the folder to find detailed analyses of her academic work, her simulation scores from submarine school, and several papers she had published under her pseudonym. "We know about your private research, Lieutenant. We know about the tactical innovations you've been developing. We know that you've continued your education in submarine warfare despite your official status." The revelation that her activities had been under surveillance should have been alarming, but Sarah found herself oddly relieved. For 3 years she had wondered if her efforts were meaningless, if her skills were slowly atrophying in isolation. To learn that her work had been noticed, evaluated, and deemed valuable by Naval Intelligence represented a validation she hadn't dared hope for. "The question before us," Rodriguez continued, "is whether you're willing to serve your country in a capacity that doesn't officially exist. This mission will not appear in any personnel record. Your participation will never be acknowledged publicly. If you're captured or killed, the Navy will deny any knowledge of your activities." Sarah felt her grandfather's compass, which she had instinctively brought with her, pressing against her chest where she wore it on a chain beneath her civilian clothes. The choice before her represented everything she had dreamed of and everything she had feared. An opportunity to prove herself in actual submarine warfare, but under circumstances that offered no possibility of official recognition or career advancement. "What exactly are you asking me to do, ma'am?" Rodriguez activated a wall display that showed a map of the North Atlantic with several red markers indicating suspected submarine contacts. "We're asking you to take command of a highly classified Submarine and locate this unknown vessel before it can complete whatever mission brought it to our waters. The room seemed to spin around Sarah as the magnitude of the offer sank in. Command of a submarine, the dream that had been stolen from her 3 years earlier, was being offered back under circumstances she could never have imagined. "Ma'am, I haven't served aboard a submarine since my training was terminated. I have no crew, no operational experience with actual submarines." Rodriguez's expression softened slightly, the first crack in her professional demeanor. "Lieutenant, you've been serving aboard submarines for the past 3 years. Your simulation work has been monitored and evaluated by some of the best submarine commanders in the fleet. Your tactical innovations have been tested in classified war games, and your acoustic analysis methods have been quietly implemented in several operational submarines." She gestured to another section of the folder, which contained performance evaluations that Sarah had never seen before. "Your theoretical work on signature masking and acoustic deception has been used successfully in 3 separate intelligence gathering operations. Your innovations in 3-dimensional tactical maneuvering have been incorporated into the tactical manual for Los Angeles-class submarines. You may not have been physically present aboard submarines, but your influence has been felt throughout." The silent service. Sarah stared at the documents, recognizing her own theoretical work translated into operational procedures and tactical guidance. "The submarine you'll be commanding is USS Phantom, a vessel that officially doesn't exist. She's been constructed using technologies that push the boundaries of what's currently possible in submarine design. Her acoustic signature is virtually undetectable, her propulsion system operates on principles that are highly classified, and her weapon systems incorporate targeting technologies that have never been tested in actual combat." Rodriguez paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle. USS Phantom was designed specifically for missions like this one, operations that require a combination of stealth, innovation, and tactical brilliance that can't be found through conventional channels. The irony was not lost on Sarah that her exile from conventional submarine service had prepared her for a mission that conventional submarine commanders couldn't handle. Her years of theoretical work, her development of unconventional tactics, and her deep understanding of acoustic warfare had equipped her for challenges that standard naval training couldn't address. "Ma'am, even if I accept this mission, I'll need a crew. Submarine operations require teams of highly trained specialists." Rodriguez smiled for the first time during their conversation. "Your crew is already assembled. They're all officers who, like you, possess specialized skills that aren't fully appreciated through conventional channels. Some are former submarine officers who were forced out due to policy disagreements. Others are technical specialists whose innovations were deemed too radical for implementation. All of them have been preparing for this mission for months." Over the next several hours, Rodriguez briefed Sarah on the details of USS Phantom and her crew. The submarine represented a quantum leap in stealth technology, incorporating advances in acoustic dampening, electromagnetic signature reduction, and propulsion systems that bordered on science fiction. Her crew of 18 officers and enlisted personnel had been carefully selected for their expertise in unconventional warfare, their ability to think beyond standard operational procedures, and their willingness to operate outside the normal command structure. Lieutenant Commander James Volkov, her executive officer, was a former Spetsnaz naval officer who had defected to the United States after becoming disillusioned with Russian submarine doctrine. His expertise in unconventional underwater warfare tactics complemented Sarah's theoretical knowledge with practical experience in missions that pushed the boundaries of international law. Chief Petty Officer Maria Santos, her sonar supervisor, possessed an almost supernatural ability to interpret acoustic data, capable of identifying submarine signatures that computer systems missed entirely. Her techniques for passive sonar operation had been developed through years of tracking drug smuggling submarines in the Caribbean. The weapons officer, Lieutenant David Kim, was a former Air Force targeting specialist who had been recruited specifically for his expertise in precision engagement systems. His background in aerospace weapons technology brought a unique perspective to underwater combat that conventional submarine officers lacked. The engineering team was led by Chief Warrant Officer Rebecca Morrison, whose innovations in propulsion systems had been rejected by the mainstream Navy as too risky for operational deployment, but were perfectly suited for a submarine that officially didn't exist. Each crew member brought specialized skills that addressed specific aspects of their mission against an unknown submarine with apparently revolutionary capabilities. Sarah realized that she wasn't just being offered command of a submarine. She was being given leadership of a team of naval outcasts whose combined expertise represented the cutting edge of underwater warfare theory and practice. They were the perfect crew for a mission that conventional wisdom suggested was impossible. Rodriguez provided Sarah with detailed specifications for USS Phantom, revealing a submarine that challenged every assumption about underwater vessel design. Her hull was constructed using materials that absorbed rather than reflected sonar waves, making her virtually invisible to conventional detection methods. Her propulsion system operated on principles that eliminated the acoustic signatures typically associated with submarine movement, allowing her to move through the water with unprecedented stealth. Her weapons systems incorporated targeting computers that could track and engage multiple targets simultaneously while maintaining complete acoustic silence. The submarine's most remarkable feature was her sensor suite, which combined traditional sonar with experimental detection technologies that could identify underwater targets through methods that remained highly classified. Sarah studied the technical specifications with growing amazement, recognizing that USS Phantom represented the culmination of decades of research into advanced submarine warfare. She was looking at a vessel designed specifically to hunt other submarines, equipped with capabilities that would give her significant advantages against any conventional adversary. However, their target was apparently not a conventional adversary. The intelligence briefing revealed that the unknown submarine had demonstrated capabilities that suggested equally advanced technology. It had been detected initially by a network of passive sonar arrays monitoring shipping lanes, but subsequent attempts to track or intercept it had failed completely. American and Allied submarines had been dispatched to investigate, but none had been able to establish contact with the mysterious vessel. It moved through the ocean like a ghost, appearing briefly on sensors before vanishing completely. The mission parameters were unlike anything in Sarah's experience or training. USS Phantom would operate independently without support from the conventional fleet or regular communication with shore-based commands. Sarah would have complete tactical authority to engage or avoid contact with the unknown submarine based on her assessment of the situation. The mission's success would be measured not by adherence to standard operating procedures, but by results achieved through innovation and tactical brilliance. Rodriguez concluded the briefing by emphasizing the stakes involved in the mission. Lieutenant, this unknown submarine represents either a technological breakthrough by a foreign power or the emergence of a threat that we don't yet understand. Either possibility has profound implications for national security and the balance of power in the Atlantic. USS Phantom and her crew represent our best hope of gathering intelligence on this vessel and neutralizing any threat it might pose. She fixed Sarah with an intense stare. Are you prepared to accept this mission? Sarah felt the weight of her grandfather's compass against her chest, remembering his words about the depths revealing truth. This mission offered her the chance to prove herself in the submarine warfare arena where she belonged, but under circumstances that would provide no public vindication of her abilities. Success would be known only to a small circle of intelligence officers, while failure could result in her death and the loss of an entire crew of exceptional naval personnel. It was the opportunity she had dreamed of, wrapped in risks that she could barely comprehend. "Ma'am, I accept the mission," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was committing to. Rodriguez nodded approvingly, then slid another folder across the desk. "USS Phantom is currently moored at a classified facility 2 hours north of here. You have 24 hours to review her specifications, meet your crew, and prepare for deployment. Your mission begins at dawn tomorrow." She stood, extending her hand to Sarah. "Lieutenant Commander Delacroix, welcome back to Sue." The promotion represented official recognition that had eluded Sarah for 3 years, but it came with responsibilities that dwarfed anything she had previously imagined. As she left Captain Rodriguez's office, clutching the classified folders that contained her new identity and mission parameters, Sarah realized that her exile was ending not with reinstatement to conventional service, but with elevation to a level of naval warfare that few officers ever experienced. The drive to the classified submarine facility took them through increasingly remote terrain, past security checkpoints that required multiple forms of identification and clearance codes that changed every few miles. When they finally arrived at their destination, Sarah found herself looking at a facility that appeared nowhere on any public maps. Underground piers extended deep into the earth, connected to the ocean through channels that had been carved from solid rock. The engineering required to construct such a facility represented an investment in submarine warfare that spoke to the importance of missions like the one she was about to undertake. USS Phantom lay moored at the deepest pier, her sleek black hull reflecting the overhead lighting like a predator resting between hunts. She was smaller than the submarines Sarah had trained on, but her design spoke to efficiency and stealth, rather than size and intimidation. Every line of her hull had been optimized for minimal acoustic signature, every surface treated with materials that would confuse enemy sensors. She was beautiful in the way that only perfectly designed weapons could be beautiful, deadly, and elegant in equal measure. The crew that assembled to meet their new commanding officer represented a cross-section of naval excellence that had been overlooked or undervalued by conventional command structures. Sarah recognized in their faces the same mixture of determination and frustration that she had carried for 3 years. They were exceptional officers and enlisted personnel who had been denied opportunities to prove themselves through regular channels, brought together for a mission that would test every aspect of their training and innovation. Lieutenant Commander Volkov introduced himself with the crisp efficiency of a professional soldier, but Sarah detected underneath his formal demeanor the intensity of someone who had seen conventional tactics fail against unconventional threats. Chief Santos's handshake was firm, her eyes holding the quiet confidence of someone who trusted her abilities completely. Lieutenant Kim's youth was offset by an obvious intelligence that suggested tactical thinking beyond his years, while Chief Morrison's weathered hand spoke to decades of engineering experience, applied to problems that textbooks couldn't address. As Sarah toured USS Phantom, she marveled at the integration of advanced technologies with practical submarine design. The control room featured displays and interfaces that provided unprecedented situational awareness, while the engineering spaces contained propulsion systems that operated on principles she recognized from her theoretical research but had never seen implemented. The weapons compartment housed torpedoes and other systems that represented the cutting edge of underwater warfare technology. Every space aboard the submarine had been optimized for efficiency and stealth, creating a vessel perfectly suited for missions that conventional submarines couldn't attempt. The crew briefing that evening brought together 18 of the most innovative minds in underwater warfare, united by their shared mission and their commitment to proving that excellence existed outside the boundaries of conventional military hierarchy. Sarah stood before them, recognizing that this moment represented everything she had worked toward during her years of exile. She was no longer the disgraced officer who had been escorted from submarine school. She was the commanding officer of the most advanced submarine in the world, responsible for a mission that could alter the balance of naval power. Her address to the crew was brief but pointed. We're about to undertake a mission that will test every assumption about submarine warfare. Our target possesses capabilities that challenge everything we think we know about underwater operations. Success will require us to think beyond conventional tactics, to innovate in real time, and to trust each other completely. She paused, looking into the faces of her crew members. We've all been told at some point that we don't fit within the standard mold of naval officers. Tomorrow, we have the chance to prove that excellence comes in many forms. The final preparations took place through the night as USS Phantom was loaded with provisions, weapons, and specialized equipment for her mission. Sarah spent the hours reviewing intelligence reports, studying the limited data available on their target, and running through tactical scenarios with her executive officer. The unknown submarine's capabilities remained largely theoretical, based on brief sensor contacts and failed tracking attempts. They would be hunting a ghost, using techniques that had never been tested against a target that might possess technologies beyond their current understanding. As dawn approached, Sarah stood on USS Phantom's bridge, watching the crew complete their final pre-deployment checks. The facility around them hummed with activity as support personnel ensured that every system aboard the submarine was operating at peak efficiency. She felt her grandfather's compass warm against her chest, as if responding to the proximity of the ocean that lay beyond the underground channels. This was the moment she had been preparing for during 3 years of exile, the opportunity to prove herself in the depths where she belonged. The departure from the classified facility was choreographed with precision that spoke to the importance of maintaining secrecy around USS Phantom's existence. They moved through the underground channels in complete silence, their passage monitored by sensors that would ensure no trace of their departure could be detected by hostile intelligence services. As they finally reached open ocean, Sarah felt the familiar sensation of a submarine settling into her natural environment, the gentle motion that indicated freedom from the constraints of surface operations. USS Phantom's maiden voyage under Sarah's command began with a series of tests designed to verify all systems and establish the crew's proficiency with their advanced equipment. The submarine responded to her commands with a precision that exceeded anything Sarah had experienced in simulators, her stealth systems rendering her virtually invisible to the sensor networks that monitored the coastal waters. Within hours of departure, they had disappeared from all conventional tracking methods, becoming a ghost in the depths of the Atlantic. The hunt for their mysterious target would require them to think and operate in ways that no submarine crew had ever attempted, using technologies that pushed the boundaries of what was possible in underwater warfare. Sarah stood in USS Phantom's control room, surrounded by her exceptional crew, ready to prove that innovation and determination could overcome any challenge the depths might present. Their exile from conventional naval service was ending, but their greatest test was just beginning. The first contact came 12 hours into their patrol, a whisper of sound that would have been missed by conventional sonar systems. Chief Santos's fingers danced across her acoustic analysis console, her trained ear picking up harmonics that barely registered above the background noise of the ocean. Con, sonar. I'm detecting an anomalous acoustic signature bearing 095, range approximately 15 nautical miles. Sarah moved to the sonar station, studying the waterfall display that showed the mysterious contact as little more than a faint line against the ambient ocean sounds. Classification, Chief? Santos frowned, adjusting her headphones and fine-tuning the acoustic filters. Ma'am, I've never heard anything like this. The signature suggests a large submarine, but the propulsion noise is almost non-existent. Whatever this is, it's using technology I can't identify. Lieutenant Commander Volkov joined them at the sonar station, his expression grim as he studied the contact data. In Russian waters, we had rumors of experimental submarines that could operate in complete acoustic silence. Most of us thought they were propaganda, designed to intimidate NATO forces. He pointed to specific frequency patterns on the display. But these readings matched theoretical profiles for magnetohydrodynamic propulsion systems. If someone has actually built such a submarine, it would revolutionize underwater warfare. Sarah felt her pulse quicken as she realized they were looking at their target, the mysterious submarine that had evaded detection by multiple allied naval forces. USS Phantom moved toward the contact with the silence of a hunting predator, her advanced stealth systems masking their approach completely. Sarah ordered a reduction in speed to minimize any possibility of detection, knowing that their first encounter with this unknown submarine would determine the success or failure of their mission. The crew moved through their stations with practiced efficiency, each member understanding that they were about to face a challenge unlike anything in their previous experience. All stations, this is the captain. We are approaching our primary target. All hands to general quarters. Maintain acoustic silence. As they closed the distance to the mysterious submarine, USS Phantom's advanced sensor suite began providing detailed information about their target. The unknown vessel was indeed massive, nearly twice the length of conventional nuclear submarines, with a hull configuration that defied traditional design principles. Her propulsion system generated virtually no acoustic signature, confirming Volkov's assessment about revolutionary technology. Most disturbing was the indication that the submarine was actively scanning the surrounding area with sensor systems that operated on frequencies unlike anything in American or Allied arsenals. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple sensor sweeps from the target," reported Lieutenant Kim from his weapons control station. "The pattern suggests they're using some form of gravimetric detection system, possibly combined with electromagnetic field analysis. They're not relying on traditional sonar." Sarah absorbed this information with growing concern, realizing that their target possessed capabilities that made conventional stealth measures potentially useless. If the unknown submarine could detect vessels through methods other than acoustic signature, USS Phantom's advanced stealth technology might provide no protection at all. The tactical situation became clear as Sarah studied the sensor data streaming from their target. This was not a conventional submarine conducting routine patrol operations. The unknown vessel was systematically mapping the ocean floor while simultaneously gathering intelligence on shipping traffic patterns and naval operations. Her sophisticated sensor sweeps were cataloging every vessel within a 100-mile radius, creating a comprehensive picture of Atlantic maritime activity that could be used for strategic planning or targeting purposes. This was reconnaissance on a scale that suggested preparation for major naval operations. "Sonar, can you determine the target's nationality based on acoustic signature analysis?" Sarah asked, though she suspected the answer would be negative. Santos worked with her equipment for several minutes before responding with obvious frustration. "Ma'am, the acoustic profile doesn't match any submarine in our classification database. The hull construction appears to use materials that absorb rather than reflect sound waves, making traditional identification methods useless. Whoever built this submarine has technology that's at least a generation ahead of anything we've seen before." The implications were staggering. A submarine with such advanced capabilities represented either a quantum leap in technological development by a known adversary or the emergence of a completely unknown threat. Either possibility had profound consequences for naval strategy and national security. Sarah realized that their mission had evolved beyond simple reconnaissance. They were potentially facing the most significant development in submarine warfare since the advent of nuclear propulsion. "XO, what's your assessment of our tactical situation?" Volkov studied the sensor displays with the intensity of someone who had spent his career preparing for exactly this type of encounter. "Captain, we're looking at a vessel that can detect conventional submarines while remaining virtually undetectable herself. Her size suggests she carries weapon systems proportionally more powerful than anything in service. If this submarine represents a new class of vessel, and if there are others like her, the balance of naval power has shifted dramatically." He paused, considering the strategic implications. "Our conventional fleet would be helpless against such vessels." Sarah made the decision to attempt close-range surveillance, despite the risks involved. USS Phantom's advanced stealth capabilities gave them their best chance of approaching the unknown submarine undetected. Gathering detailed intelligence on her configuration and capabilities. "Helm, come to course 0-9-8, ahead 1/3. Sonar, prepare for passive tracking of target vessel. All stations maintain absolute silence." The submarine turned toward their target, like a shark scenting blood, her crew understanding that they were attempting something unprecedented in submarine warfare. The approach took 2 hours, during which USS Phantom demonstrated her revolutionary stealth characteristics. Despite operating within 5 miles of a submarine equipped with the most advanced detection systems they had ever encountered, she remained completely undetected. Sarah watched with growing confidence as her submarine proved herself capable of missions that conventional vessels could never attempt. Chief Morrison's engineering team maintained perfect acoustic silence while the advanced hull materials absorbed every sensor sweep from their target. At close range, the unknown submarine revealed details that confirmed Sarah's worst fears about the threat she represented. Her hull bore no national markings or identification numbers, suggesting either a black project or the involvement of a non-state actor with access to extremely advanced technology. Her weapon systems included launch tubes for torpedoes significantly larger than standard NATO armaments, along with vertical launch systems that could accommodate missiles or other weapons. Most concerning were sensor arrays that appeared designed for target acquisition and fire control systems far more sophisticated than anything previously encountered. "Captain, I'm detecting launch tube doors opening on the target," Lieutenant Kim reported with obvious tension in his voice. "Torpedo room is flooded and ready. Whatever they're preparing for, it's not a drill." Sarah felt the familiar calm that descended upon her during moments of extreme danger, her mind automatically calculating firing solutions and evasive maneuvers. The unknown submarine was preparing to engage something, though her target remained unclear. USS Phantom was positioned perfectly to observe, but any aggressive action would reveal their presence and potentially trigger a conflict that could escalate beyond control. The answer came moments later as USS Phantom's sensors detected 3 conventional submarines approaching from different vectors. Sarah recognized them immediately as Allied vessels, likely responding to intelligence reports about the mysterious submarine's presence in the area. The unknown submarine had detected their approach long before conventional sonar could have identified her location, demonstrating once again the technological superiority that made her so dangerous. The Allied submarines were sailing into a trap without realizing they faced an adversary capable of detecting and engaging them before they could respond. "XO, those are American submarines approaching our position," Sarah said quietly, her mind racing through options that all seemed to lead to disaster. "If we reveal our presence to warn them, we compromise our mission and lose our tactical advantage. If we remain silent, they're likely to be destroyed or captured." Volkov nodded grimly, understanding the impossible position they faced. "Captain, our orders specify that this mission takes priority over all other considerations. But those are our people sailing into certain destruction." The tactical situation crystallized with terrifying clarity as the unknown submarine began targeting solutions on the approaching Allied vessels. Her advanced fire control systems locked onto each submarine with precision that conventional defensive measures couldn't counter. Sarah watched the sensor displays with growing horror, realizing that she was about to witness the destruction of 3 American submarines unless she took action that would violate her mission parameters and potentially doom her own crew. The decision came instinctively, driven by the same moral certainty that had guided her throughout her career. All stations, prepare for immediate engagement. Weapons, target the unknown submarine's forward torpedo room and fire control center. We're going to give our people a fighting chance. Lieutenant Kim's hands flew across his targeting console as USS Phantom's advanced weapon systems locked onto their target. Torpedoes ready in all tubes, Captain. Firing solutions plotted. For maximum effectiveness. USS Phantom's attack erupted with devastating precision, her advanced torpedoes striking the unknown submarine before her crew realized they were under assault. The weapon systems that Sarah's team had spent months perfecting proved their worth in actual combat, penetrating the target's sophisticated defenses and causing massive internal damage. The mysterious submarine's launch sequence was interrupted by explosions that tore through her forward sections, preventing the attack on the Allied vessels while revealing USS Phantom's presence to every sensor in the area. The unknown submarines. Response was immediate and deadly, her remaining weapon systems targeting USS Phantom with accuracy that demonstrated why she had been considered such a threat. Advanced torpedoes closed on their position with speed and maneuverability that exceeded anything in American arsenals. Sarah ordered emergency evasive maneuvers as USS Phantom demonstrated her superiority in underwater combat, using stealth systems and tactical innovations that allowed her to evade weapons that would have destroyed conventional submarines. Battle that followed redefined submarine warfare, pitting revolutionary technologies against each other in a contest that neither crew had trained for specifically. USS Phantom's stealth capabilities allowed her to disappear between attacks, striking from unexpected angles before vanishing again into the acoustic shadows of the ocean depths. The unknown submarine's sophisticated sensors allowed her to track USS Phantom despite her stealth systems, but her damage from the initial attack reduced her effectiveness with each passing minute. Chief Santos proved her worth as a sonar operator during the engagement, using acoustic analysis techniques that allowed USS Phantom to predict enemy movements and position herself for optimal attack angles. Captain, target is attempting to disengage. Her propulsion systems are damaged, but she's still capable of significant speed. Lieutenant Kim coordinated weapons attacks with precision that maximized damage while minimizing exposure to return fire. Direct hit on target's engineering section. She's losing power and taking on water. The engagement reached its climax when the unknown submarine attempted a desperate gambit, firing her remaining torpedoes in a spread pattern designed to saturate USS Phantom's defensive capabilities. Sarah ordered emergency deep submergence, taking her submarine below the thermal layers where the enemy weapons lost tracking capability. USS Phantom's advanced hull design allowed her to operate at depths that would crush conventional submarines, providing a tactical advantage that proved decisive in avoiding destruction. When USS Phantom emerged from the depths to assess the battle damage, the unknown submarine was gone, having used their evasive maneuvers to escape into the vast reaches of the Atlantic. Sarah's crew had prevented the destruction of 3 Allied submarines and gathered intelligence on revolutionary submarine technology, but their target had escaped to potentially threaten shipping and naval operations throughout the Atlantic theater. The victory felt incomplete, tempered by the knowledge that an enemy with such capabilities remained at large. The Allied submarines that USS Phantom had saved arrived on scene within minutes of the engagement's conclusion, their crews demanding explanations for the mysterious vessel that had appeared from nowhere to engage an unknown threat. Sarah found herself in the position of having to maintain the security of USS Phantom's existence while coordinating with Allied forces who deserved answers about the engagement they had witnessed. The communications protocols for such situations had never been established, leaving her to improvise solutions that would protect classified information while maintaining alliance relationships. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled through the encrypted communication system an hour after the engagement, her tone mixing relief with concern. USS Phantom, this is Night Watch. Report your status and mission evaluation. Sarah provided a detailed account of the engagement, emphasizing the unknown submarine's escape and the intelligence gathered about her revolutionary capabilities. Night Watch, target demonstrated technological superiority in multiple warfare areas. Immediate threat to Allied naval operations confirmed. Recommend enhanced surveillance and possible fleet-wide tactical modifications. The intelligence gathered during the engagement transformed understanding of submarine warfare capabilities and threats. USS Phantom sensor recordings provided detailed information about propulsion systems, stealth technologies, and weapons capabilities that represented significant advances over anything previously encountered. The implications for naval strategy were profound, requiring fundamental reassessments of submarine tactics, detection methods, and defensive measures. Sarah's crew had gathered information that would influence submarine design and operations for decades to come. The return journey to their classified base took place under conditions of heightened security, with USS Phantom maintaining constant vigilance for additional unknown submarines that might be operating in Atlantic waters. The engagement had proven that USS Phantom could successfully engage revolutionary submarine technology, but it had also revealed that such threats were real and potentially numerous. Sarah's mission had evolved from reconnaissance to active defense of American naval operations against enemies whose capabilities exceeded previous threat assessments. The debriefing sessions that followed their return lasted for days, with intelligence analysts and submarine warfare specialists analyzing every aspect of the engagement. Sarah found herself at the center of discussions that would reshape submarine warfare doctrine, her tactical decisions during the engagement becoming case studies for future operations against advanced threats. The theoretical work she had conducted during her years of exile had proven invaluable in actual combat, validating approaches that conventional training had never addressed. Commander Blackwood's reaction to news of Sarah's successful mission came through unofficial channels, his disbelief and rage transmitted through a network of officers who had witnessed his systematic efforts to destroy her career. The woman he had dismissed as unsuitable for submarine command had proven herself in combat against the most advanced submarine threat ever encountered. His legacy of discrimination and bias stood exposed as the actions of someone who had nearly cost the Navy one of its most capable submarine commanders. The recognition that followed was unlike anything Sarah had experienced during her conventional naval career. Rather than public ceremonies or official commendations, she received private acknowledgments from the highest levels of naval command. Officers who understood the significance of her achievement but were bound by classification requirements that prevented public recognition. Admiral Hawthorne personally delivered a message from the Chief of Naval Operations, expressing gratitude for service that had potentially prevented catastrophic losses to the submarine fleet. USS Phantom's crew received recognition commensurate with their achievement, though like their commanding officer, their heroism would never be publicly acknowledged. Each member had performed beyond the highest standards of naval service, proving that excellence existed outside the boundaries of conventional military hierarchies. They had shown that innovation and determination could overcome technological superiority when combined with tactical brilliance and unwavering courage under fire. The mission's success led to immediate expansion of the classified submarine program, with additional vessels of USS Phantom's class entering construction at facilities hidden throughout the American coast. Sarah found herself appointed as commanding officer of the entire program, responsible for training crews and developing tactics for submarine warfare that conventional doctrine couldn't address. Her years of exile had prepared her not just for command of a single submarine, but for leadership of a revolution in underwater combat capabilities. The unknown submarine that had escaped their engagement was tracked through intelligence networks to a remote facility in international waters, where analysis suggested she was undergoing repairs and potentially modifications based on lessons learned from her encounter with USS Phantom. The revelation that such facilities existed, operated by unknown entities with access to revolutionary technology, expanded the scope of threats facing naval operations worldwide. Sarah's successful engagement had been only the first battle in a conflict that would redefine submarine warfare for generations. 6 months after her return from the mission, Sarah stood on the bridge of USS Phantom as she prepared for another patrol into waters where unknown submarines threatened Allied operations. Her crew had been expanded and trained to unprecedented levels of proficiency, equipped with weapons and sensors that incorporated lessons learned from their first engagement with revolutionary submarine technology. They had become the tip of the spear in defending against threats that conventional naval forces couldn't detect or engage effectively. The compass that Sarah wore remained warm against her chest as USS Phantom departed her classified base, heading into the depths where new challenges awaited. Her grandfather's words about the depths, revealing truth, had proven prophetic in ways that neither of them could have imagined. The ocean had indeed revealed truths about herself, about the nature of excellence, and about the threats facing the nation she had sworn to defend. Her exile from conventional submarine service had ended not with reinstatement, but with elevation to responsibilities that exceeded anything she had previously imagined. The crew that surrounded her represented the finest example of naval expertise. Drawn from outside conventional channels, officers and enlisted personnel whose abilities had been overlooked or undervalued until crisis demanded their unique skills. Together, they had redefined what was possible in submarine warfare, proving that innovation and determination could overcome any challenge the depths might present. Their legend was known only to a small circle of intelligence officers and senior naval commanders, but their impact on naval warfare would influence operations for decades to come. As USS Phantom disappeared beneath the waves, heading toward whatever unknown submarines awaited in the vast reaches of the Atlantic, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her from humiliation at submarine school to command of the most advanced underwater warfare program in history. She had been crushed by institutional bias and personal vendetta, but she had not been destroyed. In the depths of exile, she had forged herself into something that the Navy desperately needed, but had never realized existed. The ocean stretched endlessly around them, hiding threats and opportunities that only the most capable submarine commanders could hope to address. Sarah had found her place in those depths, leading crews whose excellence matched her own, defending waters that would never know how close they had come to catastrophe. Her story would never be told publicly, her achievements would never be officially recognized, but the depths themselves bore witness to what she had accomplished. Commander Marcus Blackwood's legacy of discrimination had been decisively refuted by a simple woman who had refused to accept limitations imposed by bias and prejudice. Sarah Delacroix had proven that excellence recognized no boundaries, that innovation thrived outside conventional constraints, and that the depths revealed truth to those brave enough to seek it in the darkness below. Her grandfather's compass continued to point toward true north, but for Sarah, true north had become the endless depths where she belonged, where she led, and where she would continue to defend the nation that had nearly lost one of its greatest submarine commanders to the smallness of those who confused prejudice with judgment. The intelligence briefing that arrived 2 weeks after USS Phantom's return contained information that transformed their understanding of the threat they faced. Captain Rodriguez's expression was grim as she spread classified photographs across the secure conference table, each image revealing details that challenged everything they thought they knew about their mysterious adversary. Lieutenant Commander Delacroix, what you're about to see will fundamentally alter the scope of your mission. The photographs showed satellite imagery of underwater construction facilities in remote ocean locations, massive installations that had been hidden beneath the waves while producing submarines with revolutionary capabilities. Sarah studied the images with growing alarm, recognizing the scale of operations that could produce vessels like the one USS Phantom had engaged. These were not experimental prototypes or limited production facilities, but full-scale manufacturing complexes capable of producing dozens of advanced submarines. The implications were staggering, suggesting that their encounter with a single unknown submarine had been merely the opening move at a much larger strategic game. "Ma'am, how many of these facilities have been identified?" Rodriguez's pause before answering told Sarah everything she needed to know about the magnitude of the threat they faced. 17 confirmed locations, with an estimated production capacity of 4 submarines per facility per year, Rodriguez replied, her voice carrying the weight of information that could reshape global naval strategy. "Our analysis suggests that whoever is operating these facilities has been building this fleet for at least 5 years, possibly longer. We may be looking at a submarine force that outnumbers the entire American submarine fleet, equipped with technology that makes our conventional vessels obsolete." Sarah felt her grandfather's compass grow cold against her chest as the reality of their situation became clear. The intelligence community had been tracking unusual shipping patterns and materials movements for months, initially dismissing them as commercial activities or legitimate military construction projects. Only the engagement with USS Phantom had provided the context necessary to understand what they were actually observing. The unknown submarines represented not an isolated technological breakthrough, but the culmination of a massive clandestine naval construction program that had operated undetected while American and Allied intelligence focused on conventional threats. The submarine you engaged was designated Prototype 7, based on acoustic analysis of our encounter recordings. Rodriguez continued, activating a holographic display that showed detailed reconstructions of the unknown vessel. Intelligence suggests that production models incorporate improvements based on lessons learned from that engagement. They know about USS Phantom now, and they're adapting their technology to counter our advantages. Sarah realized that their successful mission had come at the cost of revealing capabilities that their enemies would now work to neutralize. The strategic implications extended far beyond submarine warfare, into fundamental questions about global security and the balance of naval power. A fleet of submarines with such advanced capabilities could threaten shipping lanes, conduct intelligence operations, or serve as platforms for weapon systems that conventional defenses couldn't counter. The mystery of who was building and operating such vessels remained unsolved, with intelligence analysis suggesting possibilities that ranged from rogue nations to non-state actors with access to revolutionary technology. USS Phantom has been selected to lead a reconnaissance mission to investigate these underwater facilities, Rodriguez announced, her tone indicating that this was not a request but an operational necessity. Your crew's experience engaging advanced submarine technology makes you uniquely qualified for missions that conventional submarines couldn't attempt. You'll be operating in international waters, but the facilities are heavily defended by unknown submarine classes that may exceed even Prototype 7's capabilities. Sarah absorbed this information with the calm certainty that had carried her through her previous mission. The preparation for this expanded mission required modifications to USS Phantom that pushed her technological capabilities even further beyond conventional submarine design. Her stealth systems were enhanced with countermeasures specifically designed to evade the detection methods employed by unknown submarines. Her weapon systems were upgraded with torpedoes and other armaments that incorporated lessons learned from the previous engagement. Most significantly, her sensor suite was expanded to include experimental detection technologies that could identify underwater installations and manufacturing facilities. Chief Morrison supervised the engineering modifications with the intensity of someone who understood that crew survival depended on technological superiority. "Captain, these upgrades will make USS Phantom virtually undetectable to any known submarine technology, but we're venturing into waters where unknown technologies might render our advantages meaningless." Her concerns reflected the reality that they were preparing to operate against adversaries whose capabilities remained largely theoretical, based on limited engagement data and intelligence analysis. The crew expansion for the new mission brought aboard specialists in underwater reconnaissance, facility analysis, and advanced warfare techniques that had never been tested in operational conditions. Lieutenant Sarah Chun joined as intelligence officer, her expertise in pattern analysis and threat assessment crucial for interpreting data gathered during reconnaissance operations. Petty Officer Marcus Webb brought demolitions expertise that might prove necessary if they encountered opportunities to disrupt enemy construction operations. Each new crew member had been selected for unique skills that addressed specific aspects of their expanded mission parameters. The mission briefing revealed objectives that extended far beyond simple reconnaissance into potential sabotage operations that could disrupt enemy submarine production. "Your primary mission remains intelligence gathering," Rodriguez emphasized. "But you're authorized to take action against these facilities if opportunities arise that could significantly impact enemy capabilities without compromising your vessel or crew." Sarah understood that she was being given unprecedented authority to conduct warfare operations based on tactical assessments made in real time, without consultation with higher command authorities. USS Phantom's departure for the expanded mission took place under conditions of absolute secrecy, with her movement through international waters coordinated to avoid detection by Allied intelligence services that were not cleared for knowledge of her existence. The submarine's course took her through shipping lanes where conventional naval patrols operated, requiring careful navigation to maintain stealth while avoiding inadvertent contact with friendly forces. Sarah stood in the control room as her submarine disappeared into the vast reaches of the Atlantic, heading toward waters where unknown enemies had built installations that threatened global security. The first underwater facility appeared on USS Phantom sensors after 18 hours of careful approach through waters that conventional submarines would never dare to enter. The installation was massive, extending deep into the ocean floor, with construction techniques that suggested engineering capabilities far beyond anything previously encountered. Automated manufacturing systems operated continuously, producing submarine components with precision that indicated fully robotized production processes. Most disturbing were the launching facilities that suggested submarines were being completed and deployed directly from underwater bases. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple submarine signatures at the facility," Chief Santos reported, her voice tense with the implications of what her sensors were revealing. "At least 6 vessels of unknown configuration, with acoustic signatures that suggest they're larger and more advanced than Prototype 7. Sarah studied the sonar displays with growing concern, realizing that they were observing a submarine base that could launch coordinated attacks against multiple targets simultaneously. The facility represented not just manufacturing capability, but operational headquarters for submarine warfare on a scale that could overwhelm conventional naval defenses. The reconnaissance mission that followed required USS Phantom to operate at the very limits of her stealth capabilities, gathering intelligence on facility operations while avoiding detection by defensive systems that remained largely unknown. Sarah's crew demonstrated exceptional skill as they mapped the installation's layout, identified key manufacturing and operational areas, and gathered acoustic signatures from submarines that represented evolutionary advances beyond anything in American or Allied arsenals. The intelligence they collected would transform understanding of submarine warfare threats and capabilities. Lieutenant Chun's analysis of the facility revealed organizational structures that suggested coordination with similar installations worldwide, confirming intelligence estimates about the scope of the clandestine submarine construction program. Captain, the operational patterns indicate this facility is part of a coordinated network, with submarines rotating between bases for maintenance, upgrades, and mission assignments. We're looking at a global submarine force that operates independently of any known national command structure. The implications were staggering, suggesting that traditional concepts of naval warfare and national defense required fundamental reassessment. The opportunity for sabotage operations arose when USS Phantom's sensors detected a critical vulnerability in the facility's power distribution system. A single underwater power cable connected the manufacturing complex to a geothermal energy source, providing the electricity necessary for continuous submarine production. Petty Officer Webb's demolitions expertise identified the cable as a target that could be destroyed without triggering defensive responses that would compromise USS Phantom's mission. Captain, we can sever that power cable with minimal risk of detection, but the facility will be capable of repairs within 72 hours. Sarah faced the decision that would define not only her mission, but potentially the trajectory of submarine warfare for years to come. Destroying the power cable would disrupt submarine production temporarily, while revealing that unknown installations were vulnerable to sabotage operations. Leaving the facility intact would allow continued intelligence gathering, but permit ongoing production of submarines that threatened global security. The choice required balancing immediate tactical advantages against long-term strategic considerations that could affect naval operations worldwide. The attack on the power cable demonstrated USS Phantom's capabilities in precision warfare operations, with her advanced weapon systems severing the underwater cable without triggering defensive responses from the facility's protection systems. The destruction was immediate and complete, plunging the manufacturing complex into darkness, while halting submarine production processes that had operated continuously for years. Emergency lighting systems activated within minutes, but the complex manufacturing operations remained offline, unable to function without primary power sources. The facility's response to the sabotage revealed defensive capabilities that confirmed Sarah's assessment about the technological sophistication of their adversaries. Unknown submarines launched from concealed bays within minutes of the power failure, their advanced sensor systems beginning systematic searches for the vessel responsible for the attack. USS Phantom's stealth systems allowed her to evade detection during the initial search patterns, but the enemy submarines demonstrated persistence and tactical coordination that suggested extensive training in anti-submarine warfare operations. The escape from the underwater facility required all of USS Phantom's technological advantages and her crew's exceptional skills in evasive maneuvering. Enemy submarines pursued them through underwater terrain that would have been impossible for conventional vessels to navigate, using sensor technologies that occasionally detected USS Phantom despite her advanced stealth capabilities. The pursuit continued for 6 hours before Sarah's tactical innovations allowed them to break contact completely, disappearing into thermal layers and acoustic shadows that confused enemy tracking systems. The intelligence gathered during the reconnaissance and sabotage mission provided confirmation of threats that exceeded even the most pessimistic assessments from naval intelligence. The underwater facilities represented a technological and manufacturing capability that could produce submarine forces capable of challenging American naval supremacy in every ocean. The enemy submarines demonstrated coordination and tactical sophistication that suggested professional military training and command structures equivalent to any national navy. Most concerning was evidence that the facilities were expanding, with new construction projects that would increase production capacity significantly. Sarah's mission report to Captain Rodriguez contained recommendations that would reshape American submarine warfare strategy and force structure. The threat represented by these underwater facilities requires immediate expansion of advanced submarine programs and development of countermeasures that can operate effectively against revolutionary submarine technology, she wrote in her classified assessment. Conventional submarine forces lack the capabilities necessary to operate in environments where these enemy vessels can detect and engage them with impunity. USS Phantom and similar vessels represent the minimum technological standard required for effective operations against this threat. The success of the sabotage operation led to authorization for expanded missions against the underwater facility network, with USS Phantom designated as the lead vessel for operations that would disrupt enemy submarine production while gathering intelligence on their technological capabilities and operational structures. Sarah found herself appointed as commanding officer for a classified task force that would eventually include multiple submarines of USS Phantom's advanced class, each vessel commanded by officers whose unconventional backgrounds and innovative thinking equipped them for warfare that existed outside traditional naval doctrine. The transformation of Sarah's career from disgraced submarine school candidate to leader of revolutionary submarine warfare operations demonstrated the vindication that her grandfather had promised when he spoke of the depths revealing truth. Her years of exile and theoretical preparation had forged her into exactly the type of commander that the Navy needed for challenges that conventional training couldn't address. The compass that had guided her through the darkest periods of her career now pointed toward missions that would determine the future of submarine warfare and naval security for generations to come. Commander Blackwood's legacy of discrimination and systematic exclusion had been thoroughly refuted by Sarah's achievements in submarine warfare operations that exceeded anything in naval history. The woman he had dismissed as unsuitable for submarine command had proven herself capable of leading operations against the most advanced submarine threats ever encountered. His career had ended in disgrace and reassignment, while hers had evolved into responsibilities that placed her at the forefront of naval warfare innovation and strategic defense against revolutionary threats that conventional command structures couldn't comprehend or counter effectively. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.